Can you imagine what Trudeau's cabinet retreat looks like right now? I wonder if this is how they expected the retreat to proceed. Krista Freeland is busy doing damage control, which of course means she's doing more damage than she's repairing. Let's hear what she had to say about the recent Emergencies Act ruling.
So we are aware of the court decision.
Of course, remember that this government doesn't particularly care about court decisions precisely because they don't particularly care about law. This is a government of lawlessness. This is a government that would fit perfectly at the end of the book of Judges, where everyone does what's right in their own eye. And so, for Freeland or Trudeau or someone else from the Liberal government to say, we are aware of the government or of the judiciary's ruling, even though it doesn't agree with us, is just another day in the life of a Liberal.
We have discussed it with the Prime Minister, with cabinet colleagues, with senior federal government officials and experts. We respect very much Canada's independent judiciary.
Really? Really? The Liberal government or a member of the Liberal government talking about how the Liberal government themselves or itself respects the court? Right? They respect the rule of law? Really? They're going to try and say that after how many years have they ruled? Ridiculous.
However, we do not agree with this decision.
No, they don't agree with it precisely because it's a lawful decision. Like, it's easy to predict whether or not the Liberal government, Krista Freeland, is going to agree or disagree with a particular decision precisely because all we have to do is say, is the decision lawful and legal or is it unlawful? Because if it's lawful, the federal government is going to disagree with it. And if it's unlawful, they're going to agree with it. So Freeland here is saying absolutely nothing new.
And respectfully, we will be appealing it. I would just like to take a moment to remind Canadians of how serious the situation was in our country when we took that decision.
Precisely correct. Think about how serious the situation was when the federal government chose to completely dismiss and bury the rights and freedoms of Canadians. There are few things so serious as a government, this government, taking such tyrannical action against the citizens of its nation. Yes, it was serious.
The public safety of Canadians was under threat.
Wrong. Give an example. We're waiting for examples. What? They heard horns honking? That's what was causing grief? The safety of Canadians was under threat in one regard, insofar as, again, this Liberal government was taking unprecedented action to ensure that their power was consolidated, even though the people were peacefully protesting and demonstrating their legal rights as Canadians.
Our national security, which includes our national economic security, was under threat.
Laughable. I mean, it still is under threat, but again, it's because of the Liberal government. This whole video could be one line: methinks doth protest too much. Freeland here, everything she accuses the protesters of doing is actually guilty of herself. She accuses the protesters of threatening economic security. This finance minister is the aggressor against our economic security. She talks about the danger against Canadians. She's the danger. And Trudeau's the danger against Canadians, not the legal, peaceful, proper, justifiable protesters.
It was a hard decision to take. We took it very seriously after a lot of hard work, after a lot of careful deliberation. We were convinced at the time, I was convinced at the time it was the right thing to do.
Did you hear that? You can go to court if you commit a crime and say, I was convinced at that time that it was the right thing to do. I stole something, but I was convinced after much deliberation with my brilliant friends back home that it was the right thing to do. And therefore, my actions, though criminal and illegal, were justified. Apparently, every lawyer is a fool in this country because all they have to do is invoke that argument, and all of their clients would be set free.
It was the necessary thing to do. I remain, and we remain, convinced of that.
Well, yeah, of course, because you're tyrannical, right? Because you're pseudo dictators. Of course, she remains convinced of that. She's a power hungry wolf like Trudeau, like Sean Fraser, like Stephen Guilbeault, like Jonathan Wilkinson, all of them. And so she's convinced, Freeland is convinced that the Emergencies Act needed to be invoked in order to maintain that power and actually increase it.
And I'll now turn it over to my colleague, the Minister of Justice, and then we'll hear from my colleague, the Minister of Public Safety. Arif, over to you.
Minister of Injustice is more accurate. Does Freeland speak again? She does. Let's hear what she has to say.
Opening remarks. We faced, as a country and as a government, an incredibly serious threat. A threat to the public safety of many Canadians, a threat to our national security, including our national economic security.
Liar, liar, liar. We will not tolerate these lies. When this woman or any man utters such putrid lies, we will repel them. You have to. Otherwise, that lie tries to become reality, and it grounds itself further and further in the depths of the minds of men and manipulates the reality into something which isn't real. So, when Freeland lies like this, we're going to say, actually, you are a putrid liar. What you're telling us is wrong. People's lives were not under duress. We're not threatened because of the convoy protesters. Rather, people's livelihoods were under duress because of your government's actions.
We acted to secure and protect Canada and to secure and protect the national interest.
No, you didn't. Again, that's a lie. What are you talking about? The national interest. The national interest is just a term that politicians use to say my interest. Think about it. Here you have a group of 300 some politicians, all of whom represent the nation. And so their interest is really the nation's interest, of course. The nation elected me, or my constituency elected me, and therefore I represent them. So my interest must be their interests. That is such nonsense. Oliver Williamson is an economist who discusses this problem in great detail.
It was not an easy time. These were not easy decisions. In making our decisions and choosing to act, we worked very, very hard with all levels of government. And we were very mindful of acting in such a way that the safety, the physical safety of all Canadians involved would be preserved. I don't want to minimize the gravity of the actions we took. Neither do I want to minimize the gravity of the threat Canada faced. And to your question, I was certain after a lot of deliberation with colleagues and many others that we took the right decision. I was certain at the time. I was certain when I testified before Rouleau, and I remain certain today. Thank you.
Yeah, well, you're not. You're not right. You're wrong. Like, again, can you imagine going before a judge after committing a crime and saying, I was certain I took the right decision, or I made the right decision at the time then. I'm convinced I made the right decision now, and that's all. What nonsense. It's a pack of hyenas. No one takes account, or no one has accountability. No one's responsible for anything in this government, unless it's something good. Otherwise, it's everyone's problem. It's not their problem, it's everyone else's problem.
Regrettez-vous
Je suis triste que
you act and how you wrote. Looking back, was there a necessary steps you had to take to minimize the constitutional impact of these regulations? And did you do a good job of respecting Canadian civil liberties in writing those regulations? Last question.
look, I truly do not want to minimize the fact that we took these decisions with a heavy heart.
Yeah, what a waste of time. We're not going to watch any more of this, but you can tell Freeland and her colleagues are scared. They know that their empire is crumbling. Their throne of lies is crashing down because it has to. Lies can't endure. Truth instead reigns supreme. You can see the fear on their faces. They know that all of their years of deception, all of their years of manipulation, all of their years of doing whatever they want in their own eyes, whatever they believe is right in their own eyes, is catching up to them. It's coming quickly. It's coming soon. They've tried for how long to promote for us, in front of us, a picture of their reign which isn't real. Trudeau's empire is crumbling. The Canadian people know that he is demonstrably corrupt. They know that Freeland is demonstrably corrupt and inept. And the truth is coming for vengeance.